Hello there. So last weekend I participated in GMTK Jam with the theme being joined together. The first idea I thought of was a player swinging between ropes like a pendulum, but the idea didn't seem too much fun, so I continued brainstorming. The second idea I thought of was that there were these nodes and the player is trying to connect each node. Maybe when the player connects the nodes, it illuminates some darkness, which allows the player to see enemies. The final idea would be the idea that I eventually chose for my game. Basically, objects spawn and try to go towards each other. Once they are close enough, they form connections. The player's goal is to run into these connections in order to break them. If the enemies touch each other or if the player touches an enemy, the game ends. Choosing the third idea, I opened a project and actually started to work on the game. I worked on a player that just follows the mouse. Then I made an enemy spawner that just spawns enemies and moves towards each other. I also checked the random position I gave the enemies, just to make sure the enemies weren't too close to the player, and that the enemies weren't too close to other enemies in the field. And then finally, I just made a connection manager that just manages connections between the individual enemies. Add some post-processing and collisions, and this is what it looks like so far. And that's how I made my game. See you in the next video! Jokes aside, the game was arguably complete, although there were a ton of no reference errors. Let's not worry about that. Instead, let's make a score system, because that's so much more fun, and not worrying about bugs in code. So let's do that. I made a score manager that makes it so that every second the score is incremented by 1, and I also made it so that the score increases by 5 if the player breaks a connection. Once this was done, I made some UI for the end screen when the player loses. I tried implementing a leaderboard using Loot Locker through one of Zyger's tutorials. However, the tutorial didn't connect the player's name with the scores listed on the leaderboard. Cause you know, the player's username and their score are supposed to be joined together? Get it? Oh, I should stop with these jokes. That wasn't the only problem though. Apparently I sent too many requests to the server, probably because I made a mistake in my coding, so I scrapped all the code for the leaderboard and just left the end screen with the player's score and high score. I'll most likely revisit this leaderboard in the future. I'll probably use Saga.io to program it as I have more control. Not that Loot Locker is bad or anything, it just didn't work out. It was already quite late in the night, so I worked on sound effects for a bit. Then I exported my project to Windows so I could get playtesting and feedback, and then I went to sleep. I woke up to the next day with people messaging me with some suggestions I could use to improve the quality of my game. I was unsure about the death condition, as it wasn't clear when the player was about to die. Wayfarer Games suggested that I make it obvious that the game was about to end by adding full screen effects, such as post-processing like vignette, desaturation, chromatic aberration, and some screen shake. I handled this by making 2 separate post-processing profiles, one for when the player is in danger, and one for when the player is not in danger. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to implement screen shake, but it was okay since I used other post-processing effects. I also made it so the enemies would blink if they were really close together and they were about to collide. Unfortunately, I had complications with this, but eventually I managed to fix it. This would visually let the player know which connection needs to be destroyed first. I was basically done implementing suggestions, so therefore the game should be complete. Logically, I should submit it, right? Well, you see, there's a few variables we could adjust. I mean, we could just adjust the enemy's speed when connected with another enemy. Oh, and let's also adjust the enemy's speed when the enemy is super close to another enemy when they're blinking. And oh, let's change the maximum distance the enemies can be to form a connection. And oh, let's adjust the player speed. And oh, let's make the game more challenging with subtracting a variable that increases as time passes. And oh, let's add
Skyan, it's already out to the deadline. Submit already and stop procrastinating, you lunatic.
Okay.
Don't think I see you there going back to coding. Export already.
Okay. And so I stopped being a perfectionist and uploaded the game. I was able to upload for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and WebGL was a challenge. Once because I had to disable compression so that I wouldn't get errors in the console, and twice because the main menu scene would not appear and it just broke on me, so I had to remove it in build settings. Once that was done, the game had a version for web and I could finally take a break from my computer. When I got back, I got tons of positive feedback, as well as some suggestions to make the game better. I did not intend to make an addicting hyper-casual game, but I ended up doing it anyway, which is pretty funny. If you're watching this video during the rating period of the jam, feel free to play my game. There's a link in the description if you'd like to try it out. Also, check out Lightspeed 6 as he made the music for this game as well as the music of this video. If I happen to improve on this, I'll probably add a leaderboard system, score combos, as well as some customization options. I may also end up making this a mobile app, so that'll be really interesting. If you'd like to follow along, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!